Your Honor, Ms. Kappelman, Ms. Norris, ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate decision is upon us, right? And the steps that the court and the law require you to take, it's not an easy one. It's not a short journey. You don't get to go back there and go, life or death. There's steps. There's 4 of them. And the reason why there's 4 steps is to show you the importance of this decision. Now, what the government is asking you to do is to take 2 aggravators, which is money and premeditation, okay? And make that appear to be such a unique scenario in this case, but it's not. How do you think most murders happen? For money and premeditation. First-degree murders require premeditation. What sets this murder apart from others? That's the question you should ask. What requirement should I have? What standard should I set to sentence somebody to death? 4 victims, children, terrorists, mass shooting. Those, I implore, are situations where the death penalty is appropriate. By no means am I mitigating the loss of Mr. Markel. But the options aren't death and a walk. It's death or life without the possibility of parole, which means regardless of your choice, Mr. Garcia will never step outside a prison. He will never get to walk outside of a restricted facility. So believe me when I say this to you, life in prison is no walk in the park. Let's talk about the 4 steps. The first step is if you believe that these aggravators are applicable beyond a reasonable doubt. The same standard you guys made a determination of as to innocence or guilt. It's a high standard, okay? So let's just give the government, in this hypothetical, the benefit of the doubt, and let's say you find both, or 1. You get to go to the next step. And the next step asks you, are these 2 aggravators or 1 aggravator enough to kill somebody? And if one of you doesn't believe that that's the case, then that's it. If one of you believes that life in prison is the appropriate charge, that's the charge. That's the punishment. And if you're one of these people that believe that this is a scenario that life in prison has to be the just result, stick by your guns. This is a scenario where if you believe that life is the right choice, that life is the right punishment, if life is the appropriate sentence, then choose life. And that's step 2. Because if you don't believe a murder for hire, or in essence, money for a killing, which I think those 2 things go hand in hand. And if you think to yourself, well, you know, if the government sought this punishment for this case, how is it different than other murder for hires or other robberies that result in murder? Let's talk about the mitigating factors that we're asking for you to consider. The first one is that Sigfredo was under the influence of extreme emotional or mental disturbance. Well, let's look at the trial, right? Let's look at the trial and remember what happened in the trial. Let's remember the fact that Catherine Magbanua had dumped him, and everybody had indicated that he was spiraling out of control. Even Luis Rivera, the government's star witness, This was the only thing that I agreed with him. That Sigfredo was spiraling out of control because of his breakup with Catherine McBanaway, which goes in concert with what Dr. Harper said. Listen, remember who we're talking about. A guy who really didn't have a dad that gave him coke and weed, taught him how to commit crimes. This kid was arrested when he was 6 years old. In and out of the system, in and out for little petty stuff. And then when he became an adult, he was doing better. You know, the government brought up this robbery that happened in 2012, and we brought up, wait. There's two people that was arrested. One got 8 years. Sigfredo got a day. And what kind of criminal history did they bring up other than those two? He hadn't been in trouble in years. And even Dr. Pritchard told you, he was writing his life. I'm going to skip to number 3 because that's what I want you to think about the most. If he was under the domination of another person, and I told you during my opening argument, look at the trial, look what happened. Catherine McBanaway sat there and her lawyers pointed at Sigfredo, right? They even had a chart where they took his picture out and made Sigfredo the key to this case. And what did we do? You don't think we saw that coming? Saw that a mile away. Did we point the finger back? Do you not think that as a legal team, we wanted to provide Sigfredo with the best, smartest defense? Why do you think we didn't point a finger back? Who is he trying to protect? From the beginning till now. And if you don't think that this woman had complete domination, I mean, the government sits here and during the trial, they go, oh, look at all these phone calls between them. Look at her blowing up his phone, this, that, and the other. Yeah, she did it. She had complete control over Sigfredo Garcia from day one. Day one. And now they want you to ignore the fact that during the trial, they told you over and over, she's calling him. She would call 19 times, no answer. That right there, that in and of itself, that's enough. That mitigator outweighs those aggravators by a mile. You know, we want to talk about his drug addiction and terrible situations that he put himself in or that he's dealt with. Yeah, he has. He's had a difficult life. No father, getting in trouble, and then realize when you become an adult, or when you're becoming an adult, because what did they tell you? They told you about these records in the Department of Juvenile Justice from when he was 6 to 15. I mean, you know, I don't know about you, but I didn't know who I was back then. I became a man in my 30s, me. I didn't really know who I was then. He started figuring out who he was in his late teens. And you know what that meant? Oh, I've been arrested. I've got a record. My life, that path to being a good father and being who I wanted to be from day one, since I had a terrible father, that path's not easy. And listen to what I'm asking for. I'm asking for life in prison as opposed to death. You guys have the opportunity to walk back there and walk right out. The people here that believe that life is the right choice, that's it. Knock on the door. Because that's what we're asking for. We're asking for life in prison. We're asking for life in prison versus death. Because I don't think death is appropriate here. And I don't think that you think it either. I think that the fact that we've shown the mitigator of dominion and control by Ms. McBanaway, I think that outweighs everything. Because what did the evidence show? He hated Charlie Adelson. He was going to take him deep sea fishing. He cut him off at her house. Right? We all agree with that. There was text messages to prove it and phone calls where they joked about it. And this man had to sit here and hear how the love of his life played him for years. And he still didn't want us to hurt her. And if you don't think that's dominion and control, then that's fine. Because what can I do? I can only show you the writing on the wall. And all I ask is that you show me the fact, just show me that you see it. And that factor in and of itself should be enough. Now there's others. We believe, and we've told you, that Luis Rivera, it's been our position, has been the shooter. And I know you found him guilty of first-degree murder, and we respect it. But if you believe that there's a principal theory and that Luis Rivera was the real shooter, that should be something considered too. You know, we find ourselves in a scenario where we're asking you to choose someone's fate, the ultimate fate. And we're asking you to consider those 4 steps. All 4 of them don't need to be taken. If we get to step 2 and you want to jump off, jump off. If you get to step 3 and you want to jump off, jump off. And if you get to step 4, jump off. Give this guy life. That's the appropriate sanction in this case. Thank you so much.